Hi everyone, welcome to another Disney Infinity tutorial, and guess what? Surprise, surprise, you didn't have to wait 2 months for the next clip. It is actually the following day as promised. See, sometimes I can keep you on your toes. Yeah, right, so anyway, what we're going to build is the train in this clip, and that's the thing in the far distance there that we can hardly see. But we've built the track over the last couple of clips, and what we're going to do now is actually have the train run around on the track through our mountain range. So let's get up to the mountain. Right, now I've spared you the cable car journey because there's a couple of little surprises I want to show you before we get into the full tutorial on how we make this train travel the way it does. Okay, so we've still got a little things to show you because we actually haven't done a full playthrough yet. So I'm going to build this in stages to build up the tension for the level. But what we're focusing on at the end of this clip is how we get those pieces to move around the track in the way that they do. Now, what we're going to do in my next clip, just to give you a heads up, is that we're going to build the eagle's nest and the foundations for our base. And then we've got a few other things planned up in the meantime. But let's just recap of what we've got so far. We have the AT hauler, which is actually called a hauler, if I can pronounce it correctly. So I showed you this in the last clip, yeah, and we're using Chewy, and there's a reason why I'm using Chewy, because I want to show you Chewy kicking some ass. That's what I really want to do. Right, so we have our ship come round, and you'll notice I also got rid of the smoke. Yeah. Right, now I've been preparing these clips, but even yesterday, when someone said smoke looked garbage, looked like it's broken, you know what? You're right, it's gone. I took it out, so I can make that quick adjustment, and then just quickly reshot this little section here. So what we're going to do here is now we can see the platform is not covered in smoke. We can jump clearly onto it, and as we board onto the transporter, it will now fly round and we're going to rendezvous with the ship. Now, as we go through this, I want to show you a little bit more of the gameplay. So we're going to show you what happens when we jump down onto the ship now. Now we're going to have a bit more interaction with it because obviously the Imperials are not happy that we're trying to steal it. Now, before we do that, what I want to mention is that I did say that this platform is going to be our base in case we die. And there's a technical term in Disney Infinity Tools that we call the Papa H fall. Okay, and so if I should die or fall off the ship, and you'll notice I can't fall properly, even I can't fall, but if I should accidentally fall further off a great height and die, we die. Okay, so this technique that we've used has got a special name to it, and it's called the Papa H fall. And the reason for that is I didn't come up with it. I've mentioned this before in my clip, and so I don't have to keep on explaining why I call it. We're just going to call it the Papa H fall. Yeah. So anytime I die, that's what's going to happen. We're going to do that option. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to jump here onto our ship. Okay. As we go through. Now I have noticed that when we're doing this, if you do it, don't stand on the edges of these carriages because when it twists it sometimes kicks you off. So we're going to fly across onto our carriages. There we go, we are now on this ship, okay, which is what you've seen I showed you on the previous clip. Now obviously what we want to do here is we're going to basically set some charges that's going to make the train crash and we'll hopefully have it derailed and blow up, but we need to pinch one of these carriages, but obviously the Imperials aren't too happy about that. So what we've got here is the Imperials are now going to start attacking us. Right, look at that. To start with, I was a bit annoyed with the noise, but it got funnier and funnier. I'm getting some serious action. They keep falling off, so they're not particularly good. They did make me laugh. And as you'll see the blast that we've got going through, they keep trying to run away. They're not the most clever system troopers. And then, as you see, oh, I'm hanging on the edge now. And then I realised I know what this clip is missing. And those that follow Disney Infinity, you'll have seen these other clips as well. But I think I'm right. And what I need is I need Professor Toybox's laughter at this particular point. Because I would be pretty sure that he would be having a right giggle fit at the moment, which I find is really funny. I've mentioned it before in his previous clip. He has this like very cynical laugh that when he kills his enemies, you hear him giggling a lot after it. So I think I'm missing a Professor Toybox laugh at this particular point. But it did make me laugh, so I thought it was showing it. So we're going to go round, and they're just going to get in the way. They're not most clever as stormtroopers because they keep falling off. Now, I've played this clip a number of times, and at first I thought I needed to make it less stormtroopers, but they just keep falling and falling, and it just gets more funnier. So I'm going to keep it in. I'm quite good. They're not here to really stop you because they are stupid. Another one's fallen off. But the idea really is to distract you and to cause me grief because there's going to be a certain time limit for us to set these charges.
I'm sorry you did that.
So they are there to get in the way. Right? It's just still dying. But that was the point. So I hope you find this funny as well. Let us know what you think. Yeah. They're just screaming all the way. The Puppet H4 is in full swing. But yes, and they just keep coming back. Yeah, it did make me laugh. Anyway, that is what we've got planned, yeah. We'll get some more clips of this later, but we're going to go through into more detail. I can't do it without laughing myself. But we're going to... just shut up and stop dying. Right. So anyway, we're going to go through and build this particular section, and we'll have all the sound effects later in my other clips, so don't panic. And look, just to prove that you do respawn when you die back at the top. Right, I will get composure now, and I will get showing you how we get this train to work. Okay, here we go. Now that I've got my composure sorted, what I wanted to do is just to remind you of a level I did a couple of years ago called the 310 to Edinburgh. It's based on the classic Frogger, but it uses the same techniques dealing with these carriages as we're going to use with the Conveyex. So I did it on a larger scale here. We've got multiple paths, multiple trains. We're only dealing with one train, so it makes our life a little bit easier, but it is still the same logic. So you've got more than one source to refer to when you're looking at this, how if you're adapting it to your particular level. So if you want multiple trains, have a look at this one, and I'll give you some other ideas as well. But I just wanted to point this out to you just to show you that we have done this logic before. So if we recap on what we've done, we've created this level so far with 3 tracks that run around the monorail. So this is where we should be at now. So what we're going to do is we're now going to build the train and attach them to the paths that go round on these particular settings. So before we do anything, we need to build the actual train. So what I advise you to do is using the basic blocks, and for some reason, don't ask me why, I'm already setting the basic blocks, but I wanted to show you that this is where I selected the basic blocks. We're going to build the train up so we can see how the train looks, and this is important for us to work out the layout of it as well, so we need to work out spacing. So you'll hear I need a cockpit, okay, I need an undercarriage part to it, so the other side of the cockpit. I need one of these square little bricks, which are going to be used like the hinging points. And I was playing around with different positions of this, yeah. So that's where we're going to have the little hinging working on the track. And then we're going to do the train, so we're going to have these connected. Now, for some reason, I don't know why I left a gap here. They should be side by side, and you'll see in a moment that we move those together. But I'm basically creating the layout of the train. Now, one thing I noticed with my train is I thought these were too high up, so I actually moved the carriages closer together, and I'll show you how that works. But we're just going to move these pieces back and forth, and you'll see here, and we just build the train up, and you can build as many carriages you want, but each carriage you do, just be aware every one of these components that you build for your train has to have its own path to start with. So if you have 20, you're going to have to do 20 paths, or more than 20 paths to sort that out. So just be wary of that. So we're just going to go ahead and build this train up. And as you see, that's roughly what the train is going to look like. So we've got the little boxes in between. We've got 5 carriages going down the side. And if we do triangle, the one I'm going to use is the army symbol. I quite like the army little thing. It looks more like containers. You can use various options you want, but we could use the army settings, and you're going to colour those all in. So your train should now look like that once you've got this finished. Yeah, I've just speeded these up. Then we've got the little track bits inside, so we're going to use the platforms. I think it's Geonosis platform, is it? I think I used. Is that the one I used? Yeah, you go, the Droid Factory ones. There you go. So I set all the grills to those particular options as well, so I go through and set those, and I go across those and set those all for the middle. Now you have to do this manually, by the way, because the reason why you have to do this manually is because you can't do change all, because it will change the whole options you've got going around all the support beams for the track, so you have to do it manually. Be wary of that. And then the last one I did, I gave the top like a glossy plastic shine to look like a cockpit. I believe I did the bottom a more dull colour. I did a steel colour, but you could use the same too. So I used this this glitter shine on it, which gave you a nice dark screen. Now you can see here I've finished the train, and I've also moved the cockpit so they now fit side by side. Now what you need to see here is the train is broken up into 3 levels. You've got the top part going across, which are the carriages. You've then got the hook parts that link these carriages together. That's the second row, and then the third row is the bottom part of the carriages. And each row is going to be linked to the 3 paths that we have at the top. Okay, so we're going to link the top row to the first path, the second row to the second one, and the third one to the one at the bottom. Now the problem we've got is when you link an object to a path, they all start at the exact same spot. So you can't link these objects to the one path because it doesn't work on here. So what we have to start with is each one of those path pieces for those carriages have to start on their own path, and then we're going to merge those paths together. So you'll see here we've created all these little path tools using the little pathfinder, and I've created 3 rows. 1 row for the top part of the train, then you got the middle row, and then you got the bottom row. You know the middle row has more sections because you've got more squares to deal with. So you'll see here the first part I've just done it a number of squares going across, and when I connect the header to it, which is going to this part, when you do this particular triangle it appears in the middle, so that's where it's going to start on the path. Now what we can do here is I want to daisy chain these across, so once it finishes that path it then goes and joins the track above, and the one below it is then going to join it. Now if you count those squares, there should be 6, a gap of 6 between that option. So the second path you see I've done it at the top, they're all going to start at the same time, so that will start and go and connect to the one above on the main track. Okay, but the one piece which is the carriage, that's going to still carry on staying on here before we send it up, and we need to make sure that it is 6 boxes different, and that is your 6 squares longer before it gets sent up to the other track. Okay, so we all start together, that goes up to the one above, the second one goes along. As it stays on this path it stays on here longer. When it gets to the end it will go up, and then they will appear in the exact same spacing as you have them laid out now. So let's point to the middle of this square because that's where the path tool will be connected. So let's count this across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the third path needs to be 8 longer than the previous one. So this is the third row, so we line this up, so we create this path tool, right? We move it across the side here, so we'll make sure we're just leveled up. So there should be 8. Ready? So we move it across now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And each of those carriages will going to be an 8 section box, so they all stagger down the line. And that's what we do for each one of those boxes. And you use this pre-made train just to measure out and count the differences out. It saves a lot of hassle of trying to work different timings and using seconds, because by doing the different length of the path they will join together at the end. So you don't have to do any clever how many seconds till I release the next path. They just travel all at the same time, but because the paths are longer they join at different stages. So this should be another 8 squares, yeah? And you create these paths. So just to show you how I was doing this, I'm going to just create the path on here at the top. How do I get it to line up with that side? So while I was creating these units, and you can see I've counted the box across, I'll just show you how I did that particular path tool. But I've already done these path tools here. But what I was doing is I was creating the row, I would make sure they're all lined up so they're the same level. Yeah, I'd make sure they're spaced apart. Okay, hold the mouse button, stretch it so I knew it went to the first part. So I make sure it lined up. So sometimes line up, just move it so it's nice and straight, and then I would count my 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is that line box there. And that's where I'd put the path tool, and that's what I did for each one of these. So your top row relates to the top row of the train. Okay. Now if we look at the second row, they're related to all the hinged parts. Now if we look at this one is actually set back a little bit further. Okay, so when you join this one it appears at the bottom in the middle. But remember, the one above is the longer piece, so that starts there. So actually we need this piece to come back a little bit further. So we're not starting the same point. We need it back one. So how many do we need to go? We need to go back one. So therefore the second row needs to be 1 square longer. So you'll see here directly above number 1, if we go down, the second row goes all the way across so it lines up, and it should be just 1 square longer. We move it across, there's my 1. And we use this to measure out the different positioning. It's so much easier this way than trying to do a clock. So once we've got that one done, how many to the next square? Well, that's 1, 2. So that's 2 squares. Okay, so we then go back to the third row, so the next row along is got to be 2 squares longer than the previous one. So we go across to here, so that's our 1, 2, and you'll see there you go, it's 2 squares longer. Now we have a bigger gap, so we count it again. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the next row has to be 6 squares. So this one, we get to here, should be 6 squares longer. Ready? Let's count it. Ready? 1, come on, catch up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the other square will be 2, because it's, again, since we want 2, so it's going to go 2, 6, 2, 6, 2, 6. I'd advise you watch the whole technique, because when we go at the end, you'll see it come clear. So if at this point I'm losing, you go, this makes no flipping sense. I'm going to show you it building it up, and hopefully that will make it all pop through. So watch the whole clip first. If you're going to build this, watch the whole clip through first, and then you'll see how the logic works. But it allows us to construct it. So you build your ship in the position you want, and you use that as your foundation to work out the spacing that you require. Okay, so then we connect all those, so they'll all go through. Now if you notice, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So just for that middle section, just for 5 carriages, there's 12 blocks. So each one of those blocks, so I need 12 path tools for each one of those, and therefore you'll notice these paths get longer and longer because they've got to be staggered to give you that length of the train. So there is quite a few there. That's why it looks like a massive string of settings. So when you've created those 3 rows, what we need to do with these, we need to change some settings to them. So we need to make sure we change the little tool parts on there. So you'll look on here. I want to point to it. Also, by the way, to make my life a little bit easier, I created 3 mini paths just above it. Can you see the 3 paths at the top there? That's because I didn't want to have to keep going up back and forth because they've got so many paths to connect together. I created 3 mini paths here, and what I do here is when we get to the end of this path, I'm going to connect to the top of my 3 rows. So this connects to the item. When I do the next one, so the next one will also connect to the item, and that row there, if you look at it, joins all the other ones. So they all come through on the end of the path and they join back on that route. So that one goes up to the top when it finishes, the next one goes up to the top when it finishes, the next one, and so on. But I kept this path here because it was easy to connect and I have to go all the way across the screen. Now that I've got that set up, what I do with the end of this one, I then just do it once and I go connect it to the top part of the tool. So all I did was new logic connection when point reached on path. Then I would go up to the point, I'd click on this option here, and I would then say connect triggering actor to path. Okay, and I'm going to show you that route, but I do that for every single one, and that's just for that top row. So all those will go from there up to the screen. So I'm just reviewing the logic I've done, but you would actually do that for each particular one. So trigger point and path, and then connect trigger actor to path. So that was the setting that I've done. Because I've already set those links up, I didn't have to go through all those various settings. Now what we do with this one is we then link this to the top part of the track. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look at that part. It's same logic again. So what I'll do is I'll delete it out and just go through the actual process. So let's delete that link. Right, let's delete it. Right, and let's do it in again. So in here, new logic connection. When point reached on path, and this is what you've done so far, I'm now going to connect that one all the way up because it saves me having to go back and forth all the time. It drives you insane, and that sometimes can make it crash. So the first one connects to the top one. Can we connect trigger actor to path? I'm hoping that will make sense. And that's all set up. So we've done that. We now need to do the same for the second one. So I created point 2 and 3 for the other 2 rows. So So if you see here, that one there is connected to the second row, all of those 12 boxes. Yeah, you'll see all they link to the end and they all join the same path. So when they finish, they go to the second box, so to the next one, and so to the next one, and they start joining up. But because the paths are a different length, they get staggered when they join up and hence form the shape that we want to do, which is the train. So they all link together, and that one goes to the middle part of the track that we've done. And this one is the bottom row, and again, same logic again. When they connect up, we connect to this one, and this connects to the bottom level of the path, which is relatively straightforward. I say straightforward, I've flown through that, but I'm hoping you can watch this back, and when we see the clip at the very end, it should all make sense how that's done. Now do this before you start linking the objects to the path. All these paths that we've just created, you now need to go into each one of these. You need to go to properties, you need to switch them off, and you need to change the speed to 200. Okay, so switch it off, that's it. So each one of those you go down and you need to change that. Go to properties, can you switch them off? Yeah, and make it 200 speed. And you have to do that for all of those. For those 3 rows, the 3 ones above it you don't, you leave those permanently on. Yeah, so I'm just showing you, go to properties, change it to make sure they're off, and the speed is set to 200. Okay, if we go up to these 3 are left on. You don't have to switch these on, they are constantly left on, but again you will need to change that to 200. So keep it left on, and the speed here to 200, and you do that for those 3, yeah? So you set those top 3 to 200, yeah, and we should have done this already, but you should do the other 3 tracks as well. Okay, so the 3 tracks at the main top, I think I'm going to show you that as well, which I do. We're going to set those to 300, so those are left turned on as well. These top 3 are left turned on, but the speed is 200. If you don't have the same speed, then the bricks won't fall the same formation, and it'll look like a mess. So make sure you got the speed all set up. Now we've got them all turned off, what we're going to do now is we're going to link a logic gate to all these to switch them on. So you see here I've prepared one earlier and I've linked them. It looks like a wire, like an exchange box, but each of those turns those paths on all at the exact same time. Yeah, so I'll just show you how I do it, but the reason for that is all I need to do in my game is fire one signal into that logic gate, and that will set the whole train off, and it will then go and create me the one train. So let me just grab a logic gate. I'm just going to show you what I did for all those, but I don't need to do it for every single one. Yeah, I created a logic gate here, stuck that down on the box, and all I did is on output. So I go into here, new logic connection, on output, can you switch these on? So can you go put, and can you switch those on? That's all it does, that's it. And you do those for those 3 rows. Don't have to do the top 3, but the 3 rows that you've done. And that's what I've done there. I've created that single logic gate that will now set those all off when I want to trigger them on. It's easy to do that before you add the boxes because you can't see them otherwise. Okay, you'll see that all done. If you check them through, you'll see as I go through, each one is linked to that logic gate. And it's just to double check that you've done that. Because if you miss one of them, by the way, then that train piece is going to be missing, and it's a right nightmare to work out which bit you've missed. Okay, so that's what we've done there. So what we're going to do now is we're now going to grab each one of these pieces, and we now have to connect each one of these to the path. So I'm going to do new path connection, and I'm going to do the top row and link this object to the train. So I click that on and it connects in. Top path, it drops in. Now you do have to change some of the settings. Okay, you've got to make sure it's facing in the right direction. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to the properties of that object. Okay, and there are little things you need to change because you need to do it for all of them. Because you'll notice here I felt the train was too high up. I needed to squash them up a bit, so I'm going to lower the head down just a little bit. So in the properties of that box, I want you to go to properties, go to toy box path, right? You don't have to change the speed, so don't worry about that. You do want to put the oriented along the path, you want that switched on. You want to lower it vertically by -1. Yep. And once you've done this the orient path, you may have to twist that round. And I twisted it round so it's facing the right direction, which was 270. Yeah, it may be 90 in your case, or it may be 8, whatever it is. But move that so when you put it along the path that it's in the right place. But don't forget to do orient along path. If you don't do that, when it goes around the bend, the train will look shit. That's the technical term. Sorry to use that, but that's what it is. Okay, right. So then what you do here, you grab the next piece, and again we're doing that row. So we're going to do a new toy box path. We're going to connect this up. Now, one thing you'll see with my little flaw here is that I kept my paths too close together. I thought I spaced them apart, so probably when you do this, make sure you space them across. Go to properties of that path, make sure you've switched that on, that's important. Go down, you're going to have to do vertical -1 because we're lowering it slightly, and then you're going to just may have to rotate it round, so make sure it's in that pointy direction. It wants to be going down that vertical position. Because I've disconnected those, all these bricks have remembered that logic, which is quite handy. You're going to have to change those. Okay, so I don't have to keep doing it because I've already done it before for each one of those. So I'm now going to connect each one of those to the path. So we connect that up. And same thing every single time. Go to properties. Make sure you go to the thing. Switch the setting across. Yeah. Go down, set it to -1. And then do the thing to 90. Okay. Hopefully that's going to help. Grab the next one, and we just go through very painstakingly dissecting the train into its basic form. So by the time we finish, it's not even going to look like a train, it's going to just a load of blocks just stood up here. So we connected those up. So that's the first row done. Okay, and they will follow in daisy chain all the way across and merge along onto that first track. So now we need to do the second part. Now these are slightly different. So we're going to do this one. New path connection, go in, add that to the second box. And again, you'll notice my spacing wasn't brilliant because they're too close together. I should have spaced them about. Now in here, you'll notice that's what it would have been done if we hadn't set it late. I'm just going to go to the properties of each one of those. You'll notice on here we need to make it along the path, which is great. You don't have to do rotation because they're square, so there is nothing to do on that. All we've got to do is just make sure we do orient along the path. Yeah, and the reason why you have to do that is that it will twist, otherwise it will stay square. If you don't want it, you do want it to bend and turn round. So that's important. You do switch that off because sometimes you think, well, I don't need to do it to square. No, you do, because you do want it to bend. So we just add the other ones on. So that's all done, and we'll do all these. There's a lot to cover in this little section, but you can take your time, and guess what you've got to do while doing this? Keep saving your logic. Yeah, create a couple of path tools, and this, by the way, is also important to do this now before you build up the whole map, because if you can't see these path tools, it's a flipping nightmare. So at this present moment, you can see that I can still see all these path tools, so it's a really handy thing to do. Yeah, so keep grabbing these blocks, move them across. Right, and then we build up the level afterwards. So we're building this up, and then we're going to add the foundations to it after on the screen. Because my memory's still low at the moment, which is why we can see the lines. But if you wanted 2 trains, yeah, you've got to double up on all these paths. That's a lot, innit? Yeah, it's quite a fair bit. Which is why we like the 1 train. That's why we stuck with the 1 train. Not going to do 2. But I wanted to show you can use trains with blocks. You don't have to use the marble pieces. It's still available. So we're connecting all these up here on the screen. Now, with the bottom part of the carriage, we're going to raise that up. Now, strangely enough, because we positioned the path 1 box down, we actually have to lower it on the actual other path. So we're actually still going to do a -1 setting on that box. Doesn't make sense, but when you see it come through, it does work. Yeah, but we'll link all these through. And that last piece on this bit, we have to rotate, so be careful with that last piece, because the last one's not a square. So in here, new toy box path. Connect that up. And if we just look at the properties of this one, we should see that Go to toy box properties. It's along the path, which is great. I did have to rotate that to 90. Okay, there you go. And all we've got to do now is the lower carriage now. But if you're actually going to attempt this track, watch the whole clip, watch the very end of this clip, because it will hopefully make this all fit into place and it makes total sense. Let me know what you think of this clip as well. Let me know if you think I've explained it clearly enough, if you can follow it, or did I just ramble at such a marked speed that it didn't make any sense whatsoever. So let me know what you think. Did it work? But you'll see here, I'm checking the settings. It's still vertical is still -1. And for some reason it was not 270 this time, so when you go down to rotation I only had to rotate it 90, so just beware, it may not be exactly the same for you, but they've all got to be facing in the right direction when we join these up. We bring this across, connect this to the path. The vertical height is the one that will be the same, by the way, so the vertical height on these, go to properties of that, the vertical height will be -1, so you're going to make sure that's switched on. Make sure that's -1. That's always the case, and you may have to rotate it 90, so it's in the pointing down the path track. Okay, I didn't need to change those because, like I said previously, because I disconnected them to show the clip. It remembers what this previous status was. And this is roughly our train done, by the way. But you'll now look at it, it looks nothing like a train when we come back. So we move this across. Connect these all up. That's it, that's all set up. So that is our train. And it looks like a load of mess. So the only way to show it working is actually trigger this whole thing off and get it set up. So let's create a button and let's trigger that logic gate. Now obviously before we do the test you press the save option. Yeah, keep saving it. Don't have a rant like I do. So we'll put a little button on here. Okay, create a little button. Right, now I'm going to put it down here to start with because I want you to see how it moves along. Okay. So we create the button here. I have saved it, so I know we're good to go. So all I've got to do now is on that button trigger off our logic gate. Now we'll use a different way of triggering it off later in the game, but this is just for test purposes. So just trigger that one option, and that's why I use logic gates instead of buttons. Yep. So what we can do now is if we press that button, they now all move at the same time, but because they are different lengths, they start joining together. Can you see them joining across? They move down the path and they jump up to those segments and then they move on to the main track. And then hopefully, if we've done this right, if we then go and have a look at our train, a train should be in the formation that we require. Where is the train? Let's have a little look. Voila, our train is perfectly matched. And you'll have to agree, the height, by having that -1 setting, just gives it the right little height. Look at that. Perfectly spaced apart. Look at it, my little train. Woo! And it goes round in the boxes. A little monotrail is going. Now you could do it quicker, so you could do a faster speed. I wouldn't do that, purely on the fact that you'll jump and you'll miss the whole thing. So what we'll do now is we'll do it from an aerial view, so you'll see it coming together. So you'll see the train get constructed. Look as it builds across. That is what you were trying to achieve. There you go, guys. That's it. That's my tutorial. Stay safe and well. Hope you like this one, and I'll get the next clip out probably in a few days, probably at the weekend. So I'll get the Eagle's Nest up next. Thanks for watching, and cheers, guys. Bye.